Happy is a Monday? Monday. Well, whatever. It's Locked On Warriors. We're going to pump you up. We're not going to try to make you forget that it's a Monday. Kylen Mills and I are going to talk about the Warriors. I did not get a chance to even talk about Andre Iguodala making his first playing in his first game in who knows how long. Andrew Wiggins played his first game in 15 games. We got updates for you in terms of practice for tomorrow's Suns game. Do the Warriors need to make a trade? There's a lot to talk about. Kylen Mills and I got it covered next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code Locked On. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and probably a lot more at Kylen Mills, her name. You can follow me on Twitter, Cyrus Saatsaz, at Dog Surf Roadshow. Kylen, I didn't get a chance to ask you, obviously, because I hosted Saturday Night Live by myself. It was just an impromptu thing. But what was your immediate reaction to the Warriors now losing 2 straight at home, and in both cases to very poor yet up-and-coming teams in the Detroit Pistons and now the Orlando Magic? What was your reaction to that?
Ooh, that Magic game, it was tough. I mean, it was pretty brutal, to be honest. I mean, to me, I think maybe the quarter that stood out the most was the third quarter. And it's so funny because have you looked at the numbers, Cyrus? Like last season, the Warriors dominated in third quarters. And I don't remember what the exact deficit was in that Magic game, but I think they got outscored by like 8 or something. And then it just kind of felt to me like the tides had turned and that the Magic were going to walk away with this one, even as they went into the fourth quarter. I don't know. I thought it was just like kind of a heartless game. Like we've kind of talked about just the lack of intensity that the Warriors play with at times. And I just didn't think it was a great game. You know, to me, one thing that stands out is Jordan Poole struggling, 2 for 11 from 3, 5 for 17 from the floor. Just not a super efficient night from him. I don't think he looked particularly great. He had 4 turnovers. So that's one thing to me that stands out is that especially in Steph Curry's absence, I feel like the Warriors kind of rise and fall with Jordan Poole and the way he plays, you know, and he has to have great games. And he did put in 21 points, but like I said, the efficiency just not there. So that's one thing that stands out. In Steph Curry's absence, like Jordan Poole has to come through for the Warriors in order for them to be a competitive and potentially a team that's going to win games. And when he plays like he did, I just don't think that it's going to happen for the Warriors. Like they need him to be their leader.
Right.
Anthony Lamb, I think that I have to give him his flowers where deserved because I know both of us have been a little bit skeptical or critical of the two-way players getting the minutes they've gotten. And I thought that he played well, especially in the first half to me stood out. But, 26 points off the bench, can't complain about that. I know that we're going to get into this in a minute. One thing that has surprised me recently in general, but in this game as well, is just Moses Moody appears to be in the doghouse or something with Steve Kerr. Like he just cannot seem to get on the floor. I was surprised we saw him as little as we did in that game against the Magic. The Warriors are struggling against a team that's not great. Like throw Moody in, give him some more minutes. He only played 9 minutes. So I was surprised by that. Good to see Andrew Wiggins and Andre Iguodala back, but I don't think either of them had a huge impact on the game. I think Andrew Wiggins is going to take a little bit more time to get back into it. Not a super efficient night from him, and I think he looked like maybe he needs some more time just to get back and get ready because he missed, quite a bit of time. So hopefully those guys can get back up to speed and really contribute for the Warriors moving forward.
Oh, you brought up a lot of interesting things there. First of all, the chat brought up one thing interesting before we move on. The username I think is Fable JVC writes, who did the voiceover for your intro? Yeah, sure. Her voice is, I love her voice. I think she got hired by Locked On. She's the voice for all the Locked On shows. But just to answer that question,
Locked On Warriors.
Yeah, exactly. She's
it's really intense. It is intense.
But like you're like, so I caught some of your coverage. I think it was Stanford Cal.
Yeah, Stanford Cal. I called on Sunday.
You're really good, Kylen. And I've told you this before, and I've told your husband Charlie this, that like when I listen to your call, it does not sound like you at all. Like it's just a totally different person, but that's a compliment. Like you sound like someone that should be on like ESPN, should be on these national broadcasts. It's bravo. That's all I'm trying to say. Like you sound really
Thank
good.
you. I'm going to add something to that before we get back into our Warriors coverage. It is funny because like broadcaster voice is a very real thing. And it's the same thing. If I know a lot of people in the Bay Area will recognize her specifically, like Kate Scott is someone who I met in person and she is outstanding. I love her game calls, but it's just funny. Like there's definitely a little bit of something extra she puts in her voice. When you talk to her one-on-one, she doesn't sound like that. And I'm the same way. You got to like dial it in. You got to put in a certain energy. And, you know, working in local news when you're on TV, same thing. It's just funny. There's definitely a broadcaster voice, like a certain way that you project, a certain way that you say things that's different than the way you talk in real life. So I don't know. It's just people ask me that. So do you have a broadcaster voice? I'm like, I mean, yes. I don't want to say a totally different voice, but you definitely dial it into a different gear when you're calling a game or you're, you know, reporting on TV. So there is something to that. If it doesn't sound like me, that's not an insult by any means.
No.
I'm trying to sound like a broadcaster doing a game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way with any broadcasting. This is not how I talk usually. I'm much more quiet and then when I was the creative director at KNBR, like it was my voice and then like this really deep echoing like baritone voice that they hired as like the main voice, but I would do all the voices for the promos and stuff, and oh my god, it's like a whole other gear. It's like you're listening to KNBR and you really dig and
and that's not how you talk, you know, but
not at all.
It sounds good.
Anyways, but you brought up, so first thing that you brought up, which is really interesting, is the Warriors third quarter numbers. I focused on this on a show maybe like a month back. About how that's like the most clear-cut evidence that there's something really amiss with the Warriors this year. And it's also like why I have been clearly more critical of Steve Kerr and the coaching staff than normal. I do think it's warranted. The team right now is about to play their 41st game of the season, the midway point, and they're at 500 right now. But those third quarter numbers to me are very symbolic of the team's struggles as a whole this season, because entering this year, since 2014-15, so since the Steve Kerr era, the Warriors' third quarter point differential, including the playoffs, collectively is plus 2,184, more than double of any other team's single quarter over that span. So they're light years, no pun intended, ahead of everyone else in terms of the third quarter differential and just dominating coming out of the tunnel at the half. And that always, again, represents coaching adjustments, making changes that are necessary. Whereas this season, and this has really stuck out to me in that Orlando Magic game, you mentioned they were outscored. They're outscored by 7, technically, just to get it right. Not a big deal. It's only 1 point. But again, they were outscored by 7 in the third quarter. Not cool, especially against the Orlando Magic of all teams. And then on the season, third quarter differential, they're 15th in the NBA, right in the middle of the pack in terms of third quarter differential. This is courtesy of teamrankings.com. And it's just plus 0.2. Whereas in all their title years, in every year that they've won a championship, they've led the NBA in third quarter differential. The worst of those years was Kevin Durant's second championship with the team, and I think they tied for the lead that season. But I think it was in that ballpark. Don't quote me on that. I did this research previously. The point is, though, it's glaring and it's very concerning. And the why of that is interesting. I'm going to try to go to the Warriors game tomorrow. In fact, maybe I'll ask Kerr that in the postgame presser. I'm trying to think of a good question to ask him that won't, offend people and they'll let me keep coming to games. But that's a great point. So I don't know why they're struggling so hard in the third quarters. You brought up, or you were going to bring up, you did more research than I did in this category, practice updates. The Warriors play the Suns tomorrow, the final game of their 8-game homestand. Any updates in terms of who's playing? Kuminga's been missing games. Wiseman's been missing games. JaMychal Green's been missing games. What's the latest from that? And Klay Thompson is a huge one. Yeah. Any updates?
Well, first, I apologize. My studio setup is not soundproof, so I don't know how the dog's barking in the front of the house, how loud it sounds, but I'll just talk even louder. So first of all, practice today, there was a scrimmage that happened. Jonathan Kuminga, JaMychal Green, and James Wiseman still did not scrimmage today at practice. The official injury report for tomorrow's game won't come out till tomorrow, so that doesn't necessarily cement their status for that game against the Suns. But I think it's a pretty good indicator, that there's a good likelihood that none of those three will play. And I know that's, three players people have had their eyes on, especially given the size of all three of those guys that the Warriors need. So those three did not scrimmage today, although another topic that Steve Kerr mentioned in practice, or after practice rather, was some concern about the wear and tear on Draymond Green and Kevon Looney in light of kind of just the topic of these bigs being injured, the Warriors just in general kind of being thin when it comes to forward centers, what have you. And that's something that the Warriors are going to keep an eye on because, Kevon Looney, Draymond Green are players. Well, Kevon Looney has been just an absolute force and taken on an unbelievable workload, but still you've got to keep an eye, not to potentially risk these guys getting hurt. And Draymond Green is a player who's getting older that you don't want to overdo it either. So the Warriors in a little bit of a tough spot right now as they wait for those bigs to get back. And so it's just, going to be a little bit tough, I think, for them to try to be discretionary with minutes. Well, it sounds like, Wiseman and them may not be back tomorrow.
That sucks. And by the way, someone asked about JaMychal Green and whether or not there's like any penalties, like can they waive him just because he's had this infection in his leg? His contract this season is guaranteed. They can waive him without any concerns, any penalties, but the money's guaranteed. So they got to pay him the rest of the year regardless if they decide to waive him and let's say add Anthony Lamb. We're going to have a lot more show in just a moment. Got to give some love to sponsors. Of course, they pay the bills. And let me get the overlay out because PrizePicks is our first sponsor. That is like literally one of the funnest games I've been playing for a long time. The fact that they're legal in California is awesome. And the premise is simple. You're picking anywhere from 2 to 6 players. It's all about over-unders. Is Stephen Curry, when he comes back against the Spurs, let's say he plays in that game, you're going to decide, is he going to go over or under, let's say, 27 points? You got to pick players from a minimum of 2 teams. So I always stick with the Warriors and whoever they're playing against and hopefully do the best. But that's the whole premise. You're just literally betting on over-unders of 2 to 6 players. I've been winning on this platform. DM me if you ever want PrizePicks advice. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections. It's not just the NBA. It's all sports. So if you want to bet on Brock Purdy next week for Saturday's wildcard game, you certainly can. Entries are made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. And the withdrawals are safe and fast. You're not dealing with sketchy wire services and stuff like that. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100. You just have to use the promo code Locked On. And if you don't have $100, if you only got 50 or 25 bucks, they'll match that. You just have to use the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. So Steve Kerr talked about Draymond wearing and Looney getting some wear and tear. Hasn't that been like our concern this entire season, Kylen? I mean, isn't that the reason why you've been constantly asking for the Warriors to add a big, make a move for a big? Were you pleased, by the way, that DeMarcus Cousins worked out for the Lakers and is probably going to be signed by them? I mean, it sounds like that's what's going to happen here. Well, I'm curious to know, like, in your opinion, what's the Warriors' salvation for this? Like, okay, Draymond's wearing down, Looney's wearing down. What are you going to do? You're going to play Anthony Lamb, who, again, had a great game on Saturday, but it's also worth noting in the second half of that game, he was 0 for 4 from 3. He was 1 for 6 from the field. He had a layup block because, again, he's 6'5". I mean, he has limitations there. I mean, if your solution is Anthony Lamb and, I mean, Kuminga's out, Wiseman's looks like he's still out, what the hell is this team going to do? I don't know. I'm not – this is very concerning to me, Kylen. Is it concerning to you? Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's concerning to me as well. And, I don't think that Steve Kerr would come out and say to the media, yeah, I'm concerned about Draymond and Looney getting, worn out or overworked if this wasn't, something that realistically fans should have an eye on. The answer I personally have said all along is sign another big or even potentially make a trade. And I thought it was interesting. A lot of people after our Friday episode were not into a trade. Drop a line in the comments as to if you think the Warriors need to make a trade or if you're happy with this roster. I personally wouldn't be opposed to a trade. I think a big, I don't know, maybe a 3-and-D defensive guy, but I just think they've got enough firepower with guards. I really think the size is the biggest area of concern, not that they couldn't necessarily add some other pieces, but I just think it's interesting. Some people now are anti-trade. I personally think they are one move away from being really strong championship contenders. With the roster the way it's built right now, like I think there are legitimate concerns about size. And then, as Steve Kerr mentioned, wear and tear on Looney, wear and tear on Draymond Green, questions surrounding James Wiseman. Will he be ready to be a significant playoff contributor? Will he be healthy? He's dealing with, injury once again. And then is Anthony Lamb, a two-way player, really going to be the salvation, as you mentioned, who's going to be able to provide that in a playoff situation? And I think he's done really well situationally in games where the Warriors are down and they need to play in big minutes. But I just don't know, as a two-way player, a championship caliber, strong contributor off the bench.
Yeah, I will say this. If Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome are playing in the playoffs, the Warriors are not repeating as world champions. I will put my foot down and with pure certainty on that note, that if it comes to that, and for the people saying I'm being negative about Anthony Lamb, again, they didn't win the game. I mean, I've said this criticism repeatedly on this show that the stats for these two-way players hide the fact that they don't come through oftentimes. And they're putting up these stats and numbers in inopportune times, meaning when it matters, you're not seeing wins and losses. Again, the bottom line is this team is 20-20. That's not great. When the team was fully healthy at the start of the season, they were below 500 for most of that run.
Right. That always gets me when people are like, oh, we don't need to trade. But I'm like, also before even Steph's injury or Wiggins' injury, like the Warriors were still struggling. I mean, that's the reality. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And one player that you and I were talking about before the show started, which is puzzling to say the least, and that's Moses Moody, who you and I mean, I thought he was playing great. I thought he was playing fine. I thought he was finally getting rotation minutes. And then in a game against a team like the Orlando Magic, when you're already shorthanded with a ton of injuries, he only gets 9 minutes and 8 seconds. Did you like that move? I didn't. Like, that bothered me. Your thoughts on Moses Moody? And I don't know if you have the stats in front of you in terms of his minutes overall recently, but I could read those to you if you don't. But what are your thoughts on Moses Moody's playing time? Like, because that's really disappointing to me that he's only getting 9 minutes against the Magic. That's a team I feel like he should be playing 25 minutes against. I don't know.
Completely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think especially in light of Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins' absences, like I wanted to see Moody out there more. And I know there's already a couple people in the chat jumping in and saying, oh, well, he hasn't looked good this season, blah, 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 blah. But like, I also feel like Moody's a player, and I've said this about a lot of the young players, that like, he seems to just play really tight and almost timid to me in a couple of the games when he knows that he could get pulled and he's not going to be able to play for an extended stretch. Like, I just think a lot of these young guys play more free when they know they're able to work through mistakes. I said the same thing about Kuminga early in the season when he was kind of being kept on a shorter leash, and he since has been getting more minutes before he got hurt. But I kind of think the same thing about Moody, and I think the same thing about James Wiseman a little bit. I mean, they need to have some leeway to be able to work through mistakes and to have that level of confidence to know they're not going to get pulled out, because I do feel like Moody has been not as aggressive as I was expecting him to come out with this season as a second-year player. And at this point in the season, like, I feel like he's playing a little bit reserved and dialed back. And I don't disagree with some of the comments that there's been games where he's not played great, but I still think like if you want him to develop and to get there, he's got to have time on the floor. Agreed. And like a game against the Orlando Magic where the Warriors already weren't, winning, if you're struggling as it is in the third quarter, like, why not? Like, I guess that's just my question. Why not give Moody some increased playing time? And, I mentioned to you, Cyrus, I just feel like he hasn't been playing as much as I thought he was going to. On the season, he is averaging more minutes than he played last season. I still expected that to increase by more than 3 minutes from season to season, given the roster construction, the experience. At the end of the day, he did play and contribute in the postseason last year in situations and situationally. So I do think, we talked about kind of some people saying he hasn't earned his minutes. I feel like he has in some regard, He has earned the opportunity to play more than 12 minutes per game. And that's what he's averaging in home games. I think that's what stood out to me. 12 minutes per game is what Moody's averaging when the Warriors play at Chase Center. And I would like to see that number higher personally.
Yeah. And again, on the year, he's averaging 15.2 minutes per game, which is a slight uptick from last year, not considerable. It's about 3 minutes more. I look back to that Grizzlies game, right? That was a huge statement game for the Warriors. Moses Moody played 17 minutes in that game and scored 10 points and just, I shot 57% from the field. I'm with you 100% with all three of these kids. Like, you have to play them considerable minutes. For anyone out there who is saying that based on their, and I've heard this as well on Twitter and all these platforms, on this show, in the chat, that people are saying, well, I'm just based on my observation skills, I'm not seeing Moody deliver, right? My response to that is, how can you judge any player in the NBA when they're getting this little of a run on the court? You can't. And this is a player who came out of college with a lot of hype. He's a strong 6'6". He's a fantastic three-point shooter. He's shooting just shy of 40% from beyond the arc on the year. He needs minutes to truly not only show what he's made of, but that you can at least then make a proper assessment of what to do with them. I mean, his name's being thrown in with a lot of trade proposals. I don't know. I'm with you. I really don't get why he's not playing that much. Real quick, I love your dogs, by the way. This is a dog-friendly show. My pup, for some reason, who's super energetic most of the day, when I start hosting these shows, he passes out. This is like his
Cyrus, I had to text my husband to come home from the grocery store because I'm like, these dogs are out of control.
I love it.
Folks at home, if you have dogs and you had to deal with this during the pandemic while working from home and Zoom, like, my struggles, man. Like, I need to soundproof this office because I can't with them.
All right, we got a couple sponsors here. I got to give some love to. First and foremost is BetOnline, and more specifically betonline.net. Let me get that overlay for the YouTube viewers. We got two sponsors here. First off, betonline.net. They're your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. But I think more specifically, folks, the NFL playoffs are here. The 49ers, in my opinion, are a shoo-in for at least the NFC Championship. And you could get all the information on what to bet, what to look for, just by going to betonline.net. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. You head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online. It's where the game starts. And today's show is also brought to you by TurboTax. Ugh, it's tax season. But look, go to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so you can do not taxes. Show your eyes things that are not taxes. Unpack a moving box of not taxes. Taste not taxes. Sing not taxes, a lullaby. Hope not taxes, sleep through the night. Grab a saddle and ride not taxes into the sunset. With TurboTax, an expert will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so you can relax. Feels good to be done with your taxes, doesn't it? Come to TurboTax. Don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Intuit TurboTax, full service products only. Video meeting while expert does your taxes required. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantee.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills at her name, Kylen Mills, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, at Dog Surf Roadshow on Twitter. It's crazy that we've gone 24 minutes into this show. I talked to, and yes, Dennis B, thank you for showing the love there. Please subscribe, hit the like button, all that stuff. I'm not telling David Locke, no cap, to get rid of the sponsors. They pay all their bills. Sorry. I know it can be rough sometimes, but no, we're not doing that. But I do want to talk about the fact that, again, I went through the entire Saturday Night Live show. We've gone through today's show in 25 minutes without bringing up Andrew Wiggins and Andre Iguodala. Iguodala played his first game of the season Saturday against the Magic, had a nearly a total nothing burger, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, no points, no field goal attempts. Look, and he admitted afterwards he was rusty. And same with Andrew Wiggins. He admitted the same thing. In fact, I'm going to play the soundbite from him because Wiggins played 19 minutes, had 12 points. Didn't look bad. He just looked like a rusty player. But Wiggins, I want to play the soundbite real quick, talking about his first game back and how it felt, where he said everything felt slow. And this is a player, by the way, who's not accustomed to missing games. This is an Iron Man type player, but here's Wiggins talking about his first game back in 15 games.
I think your 15 games is the most games that you've missed consecutively in your career. I mean,
Sure.
was it maybe more challenging to brush off the rust, after missing so much time, they thought?
It was. Just felt a little rusty out there, trying to get my feet right, get back in rhythm. But, I know it's going to take, a little time, just put in a little extra work and I'll be good.
Were there specific plays or specific style of movements out there where you felt like, I don't feel like myself?
I just felt a little slow. And that's it. Just one step slow.
Reactions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked it too, and so did Iguodala. I think everyone's excited Wiggins is back. It's just a matter of time till he gets his feel for the game again. What do you think Iguodala's impact is going to be long term? Like, do you see him actually contributing important minutes this season? I know this is totally conjecture. We're just strictly predicting, but what do you think about Iguodala this year? Do you think? I know, because Joseph Ortega writes,
That's what made me
Iguodala
laugh.
is
That's
old.
what made me chuckle too.
Because I think that's what everyone's thinking when they see him. Just old, like Izell, my neck, my back. Your thoughts, Kylen, on Iguodala?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much summed up in when you asked about my opening thoughts, what I thought about Wiggins and Iguodala in the game specifically on Saturday, because basically what you said, a big nothing burger. They both looked rusty. They didn't do a whole lot. Like, I would have to go back and specifically look at the film to find things they did because they were just kind of unmemorable, and I just felt like rusty, not great, not a great shooting night from Wiggins. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time for them both to get back in it. My big question that I don't necessarily have the answer to, but I'm trying to be pragmatic in my approach, is just that Iguodala, with his age and level of conditioning, come the postseason, you need players. You've got to be ready every single night. You've got to turn around and play at a high level very quickly. Is he realistically going to be able to do that? That's a question I don't have an answer for because I'm not Andre Iguodala, and we only have seen one 12-minute sample size of where he's at right now. So I just think that's a big question that remains to be answered. Best case scenario, if Andre Iguodala can contribute sparingly and sporadically throughout the regular season, then potentially be ready to be a contributor off the bench in the postseason, I think that would be a huge boost for the Warriors as we're talking about a lack of size and then defense. Defense is something the Warriors have struggled with. Andre Iguodala, I still think, has great hands and potential to contribute to the Warriors. He's a high IQ player defensively, and then also just the maturity and helping run the offense and facilitate and lead these young players and to kind of get them together, because that's where the second unit has really struggled and has just seemed totally disconnected. And that's where I think just having a veteran like Andre with that group could make a huge difference. And similar to how we saw Steve Kerr start experimenting with throwing in Draymond Green before, this myriad of injuries happened, throwing Draymond Green in with a second unit just to try to kind of bring them together, give them a veteran presence, help, just facilitate the sets and, take some of the pressure off Jordan Poole as well and having to facilitate and play make. And that's where I think Andre Iguodala could fill that role. It's just a matter of, can he still play at that high level on a consistent basis? And like I said, come the postseason, you can't just take a night off. So that's where my questions remain, but I think that he could be a huge piece.
I'm with you on that. What are your thoughts, by the way, of Saturday night's show? A huge topic was Jordan Poole. I ran through all the stats that show about the fact that over the last 10 games, he's putting up points. His scoring clip's phenomenal. His three-point shooting is not. His three-point shooting is flat out abysmal. It's very reminiscent of his rookie year. It looks like he's just chucking up anything. I posted this video today on my Twitter of like him just, doing the baddie thing. It's just pure humor. But kidding aside, he's turning the ball over a lot. He's putting up horrible outside shots. I forgot who I talked to about it in terms of how to fix that. And one suggestion I heard, I forgot who told me, was that he just needs to stop chucking so many threes. But I don't know if you can coach that with him. He's just one of these guys that tries to shoot his way through issues. What are your thoughts on Jordan Poole? And do you think this coaching staff can do anything with him?
My Jordan Poole thoughts. I just think that someone made a comment in the chat, which I think is a great point, is Jordan Poole really a shooting guard? Is he a player that doesn't need to be bringing the ball up and not, doing as much in a point guard role and a facilitator role, because that's where he runs into these situations where he's dribbling too much. He starts forcing plays. He starts just in general. I think that the phrase doing too much, is something that applies to Jordan Poole when, he just seems like he's trying to force it a little bit, or that he's dribbling too much and things like that. So that's my one question is like, is there a way to be able to get some more effectiveness from Jordan Poole when you have someone else running the floor? And that's why I think he's better when he's with Dante DiVincenzo. He's better when, like, for example, I thought he played better when Draymond Green ran with the second unit. I don't know what you thought, Cyrus, but I just think, I don't know. I think him running the floor and having that playmaker role is just, it hasn't been working for him. I just don't know that maybe that's his best fit. Or, maybe it's just the fact that he needs more time to mature and to grow into that role because, he still is going through some growing pains as a young player. But I just think when he simplifies the game is when Jordan Poole is at his best, and he's not trying to do so much, when he's just simplifying, either looking to potentially drive or just catch and shoot or just make simple plays. Like I just make the right pass, make the open pass. So I just, I don't know. To me, it's when he simplifies the game is when he's at its best. And sometimes I think running the floor is when he starts overcomplicating things and forcing shots, rushing. And that's where I think we've seen some of these late game turnovers. He's rushing the play. And I don't know. Like I said, I just think that maybe having him in more of a shooting guard role and just trying to get him to focus on simplifying the game is where he's going to be at his best. Because to me, the scoring, yes, he's putting up numbers, but the efficiency is a problem. The defense is a problem. The turnovers are a problem.
Yeah. And my advice to him, again, this is an example of where coaching matters. I mean, Jordan Poole needs to be coached. And what I think should happen is emphasize to him the fact that his skill sets are so incredible, whether it's ball handling, penetrating. He's so lightning fast. Take advantage of that. If your shot is not falling, focus on attacking the rim and making your teammates better. Because his three-point shooting is horrid the last 10 games. And on the season, it's completely brought down his percentage. Anyway, so the Warriors play the
Can I make
Suns.
A comment off of something you just said?
Please,
Sorry,
yes.
I didn't interrupt, but you said something that's exactly right, and just how quick he is. And he has such a fast first step offensively, but that just makes it so hard for me to wrap my mind around Jordan Poole getting blown by on defense. And it's always so fascinating to me when you have players who have the athletic skill sets, and like you see it in his offense, how quick he is and how lightning fast he is. Yet, how does he get blown by in defense? Like, I would love to see Jordan Poole just focus on being a better defender, because it would just make him so much, instead of being a defensive liability, it would make him so much more of an asset in late game situations. It's like you got to yank Jordan Poole out as soon as it's a defensive possession if you're in a tight game. And gosh, I just feel like if he became a better defender, it would be huge.
Yep. And
I don't know. So it just struck me as soon as you said how quick he is. And I'm like, that's why it's always fascinating to me when you see players who are so athletic but can't put it together on defense. Like, what is it? Is it just like the footwork, the mentality? Like, I don't get it, because he literally sometimes looks like a traffic cone defensively. Like, no joke.
You're right. He's just like standing there as people are just blowing by him. You're right.
Like, what? But he's fast. Like, he can stay with these guys. Like,
Yeah, I've always felt that a great defense starts just with aggressiveness, with just actually wanting it. And I don't know if he's saving his energy for offense. I don't know if he spaces out and gets bored. I don't know. That's a great question. And we can delve into that more in future shows. So the Warriors play the Suns tomorrow, a reeling Suns team who's lost 9 of the last 10. The Suns, in fact, are now behind the Warriors in the standings. The Warriors right now are tied for 6th. With the LA Clippers, which is incredible. I mean, it's insane how the Warriors lose 2 straight and they move up in the standings. That's how bad the Western Conference is. The Clippers and Warriors are just a game behind the Kings for the 5th seed. Yeah, it's a really fortunate thing for the Warriors of the Western Conference is this bad. So obviously, we'll hopefully the Warriors are going to win against the Suns tomorrow. And we can have some more positivity on this program. Before we go, by the way, I don't like bringing personal things into this because why should I? No, I don't think anyone cares. But it's going to be noticeable, so I have to say something. So this is crazy. It's not a big deal, but I got diagnosed with skin cancer. I have a mole on my face and it's from surfing. It's just sun damage. It's supposedly fully treatable. I'm going in Wednesday for like an 8-hour type procedure thing where they're just going to try to cut the thing out. Anyways, when you see me again, I'm probably going to have a bandage or stitches or not again, but my procedure is Wednesday. So there'll be 2 more shows before I do this. So Kylen, you might take the realm solo. I see all the joking in the chat about how they want you to take over the show. And I have respect for that, Kylen. I absolutely value you. I think you're going to be fine hosting this thing solo. So that just might happen. All I'm trying to tell people is just in case you see changes or a little abnormality here in terms of the hosting and stuff, and I'm not around for a couple days or whatever. That's what's going on. I'm just getting my piece of my face cut out, and hopefully everything will be fine after that. So yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone for the positivity. Any last words, Kylen, before we wrap it up?
My last words are just about you, Cyrus. I know we talked about this off the air, but, of course, whatever I can do to help, whatever we can do to help support you, we're all thinking of you. Everything's going to go great on Wednesday. You're going to be totally fine. Can't wait to get you back and healthy in, a couple days after and get you back and rolling with Locked On Warriors. But just make sure you're taking care of yourself. Relax. Don't worry about anything. Oh, no. Robert Bryant.
Oh, no, I love it. I saw that too.
It's a really good idea. I might have to hit up instead of Cy Jerome, trade him in for Ty Jerome.
Yeah, you're welcome to bring on guests, Kylen. So if Ty Jerome, I'd be so down with that. That would be awesome. Anyways, thank you, everyone. I'm reading all the messages. Thank you. But regardless, Janelle Moore will be back on the show. We're recording tonight. And then I might squeeze in a show with Kevin Dana before I step away for a little bit. So yeah, Kylen, I hope you have a great show. If you end up doing a solo, I hope to see, regardless, I'm going to see you folks soon. And let's hope the Warriors win Tuesday. Let's enter that 5-game road set on a positive note. I would like to hit the midway point, at least above 500, right? I mean, if for no other reason, just get some momentum going because the Warriors have to start winning these road games. So, yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We good?
Quick positive note. Steph Curry targeting a return on Saturday. So let's keep that in mind going into this week. I think the Suns game tomorrow is winnable, given how you mentioned that team is reeling. But Andrew Wiggins, Andre Iguodala, only going to get better as they get more games under their belts. And then Steph Curry, like Saturday is only a couple days away, couple games away at this point. And, this Warriors team is a different team with him on the floor. So there is positive to look forward to. Warriors still right in the mix, despite a couple of disappointing losses. But plenty of ways to go, and getting Steph Curry back is going to be fun.
Huge. And I think you mentioned too, Klay Thompson fully practiced. So I'm guessing he's going to play against the Suns. So
yes, Klay Thompson did scrimmage, and hopefully that was just a minor setback Saturday. I don't think there's concern for him to be, out long-term or anything, or that to be a recurring issue.
There you go. Thanks, Kylen. Thanks, everyone. Say hi to your pups for me. I think they add an awesome ambiance to the program.
Oh, so. Now they're going to be fast asleep, and I'm going to go kill them. So bye, everyone.